What if I told you the goal isn't to stop negative thoughts, but actually to stop struggling with them? Well, in this explainer, we're going to dive into a really powerful psychological toolkit that's designed to help you, unhook from that inner critic and totally change your relationship with your own mind.
So, here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll look at the negative thought trap and these mental funhouse mirrors that can really distort our reality. Then, we'll get to the real problem, something called cognitive fusion. But don't worry, we're going to spend most of our time on the solution, diffusion, and I'm going to give you a whole toolkit of techniques you can start using like today.
All right, first up, the negative thought trap. You know what I'm talking about. That constant inner critic, that little voice of worry that just won't quit. And it turns out there's actually a pretty good reason our brains seem hardwired for this. They're always scanning for threats. But, in our modern world, that ancient programming can sometimes do a lot more harm than good.
Let me ask you this. Do you experience negative thoughts? If you're a human being, the answer is, yeah, of course you do. It's a basic feature of our mental operating system, not some kind of bug. But the sheer volume of these thoughts, that might actually shock you.
80%. Just let that sink in for a second. Some research suggests that the huge majority of our spontaneous thoughts can lean negative. So, no, you're not broken. You're totally normal. The real question isn't if we have these thoughts, but what kind of thoughts they are and why they seem to have so much power over us.
So these unhelpful thought patterns, they actually have a name, cognitive distortions. And honestly, the best way to think about them is like mental funhouse mirrors. They aren't showing you a complete lie, but they take a little piece of reality and just twist it into something warped, exaggerated, and, well, pretty misleading.
So let's actually step inside this mental funhouse and take a look at some of the most common distorted mirrors. Just learning to recognize these patterns in your own thinking, that is the crucial first step to taking their power away.
Okay, here are a few of the usual suspects. You've got all or nothing thinking. You're either a genius or a total failure, no in between. Then there's catastrophizing. One tiny mistake at work means you're definitely going to get fired. Emotional reasoning is a really sneaky one. I feel guilty, so I must have done something wrong. And of course, labeling. You make one mistake and suddenly, I'm an idiot. I'm willing to bet at least one of these sounds a little too familiar.
But here is the big insight, the real game changer. The distorted thoughts themselves, they aren't the actual enemy. The real problem is how tangled up we get in them, how stuck we become. And this has a name. Psychologists call it cognitive fusion.
So cognitive fusion is what happens when we get so hooked by a thought that we treat it as literal, absolute truth. The thought stops being just a thought, words in our head, and it becomes the lens that we see the entire world through. I'm a failure is no longer just a passing mental event. It is reality.
So if getting stuck is fusion, then it makes sense that the solution is diffusion. And this is a really powerful idea from acceptance and commitment therapy, or ACT, that gives us a totally new way to relate to all that noise in our heads.
Think of it like this. When you're in a state of fusion, you are hooked. Your thoughts are the glasses you're wearing, and you're seeing the whole world through them. But with diffusion, you unhook. You take a step back, and you see the thoughts for what they really are, just mental events. You're not watching the world from your thoughts anymore. You're watching the thoughts themselves.
I absolutely love this metaphor. When you're fused with a thought, you're caught in the current of this rushing river, just being tossed around. Diffusion is the act of pulling yourself onto the riverbank, where you can just sit and watch the water, your thoughts, flow by without getting swept away.
Or how about this one? Picture your thoughts as just clouds drifting through the vast open sky of your awareness, right? They're not permanent. They're not who you are. You don't have to fight them or grab onto them. You can just watch them pass.
And my favorite might be this one. Think of your mind as a radio that's always playing in another room. Diffusion is the difference between simply hearing that noise and actively listening to it. The music is still playing, right? The thought is still there, but you're not getting all tangled up in the lyrics. It just doesn't have to be the center of your attention.
Okay, so this all sounds great in theory, but how do we actually do it? Let's get practical. Let's open up the toolkit and look at some simple exercises you can start using right away. This first one is all about using language to create some space. So you start with that sticky thought like, I said something stupid. Now for step 2, you just add a little phrase in front. I'm noticing a thought that I said something stupid. See?
You're already one step removed. Step 3 adds even more distance. I'm noticing I'm just having a thought. And then, in the final step, you stop caring about the content at all. You just label the process. Ah, I'm noticing my mind is doing its judging thing again. The thought becomes just an action your mind is taking, not a fact about you.
And this is where it gets kind of fun. Seriously, try singing I'm a total failure to the tune of Happy Birthday. It's almost impossible to take it seriously. Or say it in a goofy voice like a cartoon character. You can also just politely acknowledge it. Thanks, mind. Noted. This isn't about making fun of yourself. It's about breaking the spell that thought has over you.
All right, so let's pull all this together. What's the ultimate goal here? It really is about getting a new kind of freedom. The freedom to choose how you respond to what your own mind is telling you.
Now, let's be super clear about this. The goal is not to stop or get rid of negative thoughts. Trying to suppress a thought is like me telling you, don't think of a pink elephant. It just makes it stronger. The real goal is to simply let go of the struggle. It's to drop the rope in that tug of war you're having with your own mind.
And when you practice this, the benefits are huge. You become more psychologically flexible. You actually reduce the suffering these thoughts cause. But maybe most importantly, you create a little bit of space between a thought and your action. And in that space, you can choose to act based on your values, not your fears. You get to live your life, even with that noisy radio playing in the other room. So in the end, it all comes down to this. The thoughts themselves are not the problem. They're going to come and go like the weather. Your power, your freedom, all of it lies in what you do with them when they show up.
So I'll just leave you with this final thought to chew on. What would change for you, starting right now, if you just stopped trying to control your thoughts and focused instead on not letting them control you? That little shift, well, that's the heart of diffusion, and it can change everything.